Welcome everybody to Week in Review. Today's a very special day, and this is going to be this week and next week some special messages that I'm going to deviate from the Week in Review kind of encapsulation of what's happening and what's coming to really share some, I trust, prophetic insights with you as we close out a year and then begin another year. Today is December 28th, and this actually is my 51st spiritual birthday. And so I want to share from my life. I trust this will be an encouragement to you. And I want you to know that when I came to Christ, I just made a commitment right off the bat. I said, I'm going to serve Jesus radically, 100%, the way he calls us to. And his word, the Bible, would be my authority in every area of life. I've never heard the audible voice of the Lord, but I have a little plaque in my room. It says on here, "Let it never be said of me that I presented the world a caricature of Christ." I wanted to, from the beginning, make sure I was authentic. And today I've been married 44 years. I'm just giving God all the glory. I have raised 4 children. We've got 7 grandchildren. My mentors, in a primary way, Billy Graham, the Great Commission, sharing the gospel, evangelizing, and then Chuck Colson, what is called the Cultural Commission. In other words, we're called to be salt and light and to hold back decay. And we need to be in the public marketplace, sharing winsomely and in an informed way, biblically informed, from a biblical worldview on the issues of today. I want to encourage you as we really are entering a new year to be a seeker of truth. C.S. Lewis made a statement once, and it's something like this. He said that if you seek after truth, you will in the end, and may in the end, find comfort. But if you are looking for comfort, you will find neither truth nor comfort. So I want to encourage you in this year, deception is rampant, and we need to be very discerning in this day. And there's a book I want to recommend. I feel this is a prophetic book. It's called Strengths Finders. Strengths Finders. It's an inexpensive book. It's been a bestseller for over 10 years. And it will help you to discern what is basically the strengths in your life so that you can get in that lane, find your sweet spot in this coming year, and you can be fruitful. I, in doing it, identified my strengths. Number 1 was I'm a learner. And I've always been that way. But I made a commitment that no matter what the world said, the culture, whatever, I was going to seek after the truth. And you know, I've prepared myself. In a prophetic way, I tell you, make sure you see this year as a year of preparation for fruitfulness. I have another little plaque in my room, and it shows a runner. And you know what it says on there? And I look at this. It says that he has waited a lifetime for the next 10 seconds. Abe Lincoln said, he said, I'll prepare myself, and one day my time will come. So you want to store up the truth. You want to know God's word. You want to remain teachable. You want to be somebody that is in your lane, but you're declaring the truth. And just to invite you into my life a little bit, I'm not selling anything here today, but in the beginning, I was concerned that many Roman Catholics, because that was my background, didn't understand the born-again conversion experience. So I wrote a book, and it was called Clap Your Hands. I never wrote a book before, but as I did it, 250,000 of these went out all over the world. And people said, boy, it helped me find the truth about conversion. And then as I continued my journey, I was realizing in the 60s the upheaval and turning away from moral purity and God's biblical standards for marriage. And so I wrote a book on this, Straightforward. Why Wait Till Marriage? And the idea was to lay out God's design, which brings what? The abundant life, if we'll follow his pattern and preserve ourselves and remain pure before marriage. Then in time, I realized the family was under attack and many people didn't know how to raise their children. So I pursued truth on how do we raise children and discipline in the godly standards of God. And so I did a book, God the Rod and Your Child's Bod, and a biblical approach to raising our children. Again, I was seeking truth and trying to help people. Then in time, I began to realize many people didn't understand lifestyle evangelism. How do we witness? How can we be consistent and intentional? And I came to Christ because what? Now think of this. My car broke down. A man picked me up, invited me to a church service, an African-American guy. I went. I was the only white guy there in the inner city service. And through that man's seed that was planted, I then met some others. These were all divine appointments, and I was converted. Here it is, 51 years later, and I'm witnessing, but I'm trying to encourage others to recognize divine appointments. And these are equipping resources to help people, because many opportunities for sharing Christ come disguised as what? Unwelcome interruptions to our life. But will we take time? And we need to make sure we're intentional on this. In time, we began as a ministry, the Jesus Movement, to plant churches. And so I was privileged to work on a book called The Church Planter's Handbook with some other apostolic leaders. And today it's vogue, but back then in the 60s, you didn't want to upset the apple cart and, be involved in church planting. It was somehow, anathema in that period. Then in time, I began to realize involvement in a ministry. It was called People of Destiny. And we had a clear vision, a simple vision for New Testament Christianity. And so I was encouraging people to be a pioneer. Reckless Abandon is a book that I did to help people. And I said, don't be a settler, but be a what? A pioneer. Press on. God has a plan and a purpose in our generation. And then in time, I began to work on something, and I called it Here's the Deal. That's what I do as far as like a mantra today in various publications, news services. Here's the deal. And I identified there that we were seeing in America, our culture, we were seeing what? A restriction of religious freedoms that is only accelerated now, and there's greater hostility. And then I said, we've got to continue to stand for the sanctity of human life. And what else? The sanctity of marriage. And so I pursued this in terms of teaching materials and everything. Well, it cost me. And one of the insights prophetically I tell you this year is, as you stand for truth, uncompromising, it is going to cost you. I began to work on a video, and the title was, Is Gay Okay? And it was answering from a biblical worldview the questions basically that we had, because I saw coming gay marriage. And we had Obama come into the White House, and I didn't trust him. And sure enough, we saw what happened in terms of 3,000 or so years of biblical tradition thrown out the window, all the major world religions, as somehow this became normal. Well, I'll tell you, as a result of it, I had to continue to pursue the truth. I was part of a mega church. They called me in and they said, look, we don't want to get into this. We've had death threats. And they said, this will be a deal breaker if you do a video just laying out the biblical worldview on the 10 issues that dealt with this subject. Well, it cost me. They let me go. That's all right, because my wife, when I came home, said, praise God, now we're free to do the will of God. And an insight prophetically is this: when a door closes, and God closes it, or even man does it, don't you dare despair and throw in the towel. You got to persevere. And in this year, you're going to face times. I have a friend that his wife, after 25 years, Ken Roberts in Cleveland, Ohio, she left in the morning and she was killed in a car accident. And then the beautiful church where he served and was senior leader for over 20 years, it came down, collapsed. It was a whole story in itself. But you know what? He says today, God uses those situations. If we remain faithful as God is faithful, and he will use these situations because he's a redemptive God to push us towards our destiny and fulfilling it, not push us away from it as he conforms us to the image of Christ. Then I did a book, remember this one, and it's out now, Bullseye. And it deals with the 30 hot button issues of the day. And you can go on bullseyechallenge.com, and what's there? There's 3 to 4 minute videos on all the hot button issues of today, whether it's illegal immigration, marijuana legalization. And I encourage you in a prophetic way, lay hold of God's truth as we move on into this coming year. And don't worry and don't compromise, stay strong. We published a magazine years ago, and some of you were recipients of this. It was called People of Destiny. And here we showed, it says, are you a pioneer or a settler? And we dealt with themes. We dealt with, obviously, to boldly go where no man will go. Keep pressing on in God. And then we dealt with other topics like seizing your destiny. That was the focal point of the ministry. And many other topics that we did, like where were you during the American Holocaust? So we tried to stay on the cutting edge and serve people. But as you go forward in life, you'll find there can be ambition, there can be, unfortunately, authoritarian leadership, and all of a sudden our ministry began to really go down wrong paths. 10 major leaders, 9 are no longer part of that, and we can learn lessons, but we keep pressing on. Now, I want to encourage you this year, no matter what it takes, no matter what, don't relinquish or throw in the towel. We have an election that has taken place, and we recognize 74 million people standing with a president that identified in so many ways with conservative biblical values. But people saying, well, what are you going to do? Let's just give up right now. I encourage you, pray fervently, fast regularly, and stand strong. And in this coming year, I say to you, you're going to have to pay the price to stay on track, to resist deception, to be discerning, and it's going to take steel in your spirit not to relinquish or give up in any way. Stand strong and watch how God will bless you and your ministry as we close out the year and launch into a brand new year after one of the most unprecedented, tumultuous years in history.